Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast where every 2 weeks we come together to talk about an anime that we've recently watched. We discuss it like we're a book club. We do spoil stuff, but that'll be later. And then we turn our discussion over to you, our comment section, our audience, to take the seeds we plant and cultivate them into actually intelligent ideas, or to tell us how wrong we are. We enjoy that just as much. And I feel like that's going to be an important thing to point out for this anime. Because we watched the Eminem and Slim Shady. No. The
Close.
Eminence in Shadow. The first 10 episodes of the Eminence in Shadow. And to help me discuss it, I need the help of my co-hosts. And after I introduce them, they will tell you an anime that they liked or disliked to let you know their taste as we're giving our reviews. But first off, we have the Wedge Antilles to my Star Wars. Jeremy, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. The devil is a part-timer.
Part 1 or part 2?
Part 1. Yeah, part 2 kind of. Yeah. Part 1.
All right. We also have the Bill the Pony to my Lord of the Rings. It's Jason. How you doing?
Build a pony.
Bill the Pony.
Bill.
Bill.
Oh, Bill. I thought you said Build-A, like Build-A-Bear.
No, Bill the Pony. I have an accent.
I'm doing great, and I have actually kept up with Overlord. That power fantasy just appeals to me.
All right. And my name is Troy. My anime of choice is Konosuba.
Oh, yeah. You can't go wrong with Konosuba.
I love it.
Not exactly a power fantasy, though.
Darkness is my favorite. No, it's the opposite. It's about a guy whose crummy ways get him into crummy trouble because karma is a real thing.
Okay, I get it. So it's like the antithesis of this anime is what you're looking for.
A little bit. That's kind of what I'm
Okay.
going for. All right.
I still love the bit of up, down, left, right, A, B,
All right. So now we're going to give our non-spoiler reviews of The Eminence in Shadow, just again, the first half. Jason, this is your pick. Why don't you start us off?
I'm having a lot of fun. It's like I said with Overlord, it's that power fantasy that is just kind of fun to engage with. It's a lot of thought exercises, and there's a lot of decent comedy in it. I also am. I really like the anti-harem that's going on. Like the female characters in the story are attempting to get him into a harem anime, and he's just not having it. And I really like that. And a lot of the jokes are pretty good, specifically surrounding his selfishness, I guess is the best way to put it. But yeah, I really like it so far.
Jeremy, what'd you think?
I mirror a lot of what Jason said. I'm enjoying the anime. It's pretty funny. I did not think it was going in this direction when I watched the first episode. It definitely like throws you for a loop a little bit. But it almost feels like there's multiple levels of things going on, and of like, I don't know if it's genres or if it's storylines or if it's perceptions, but I think there's more complexity under the hood for this silly anime than maybe you catch at first glance, you know? Like there's definitely, if you take into account different groups and how they're perceiving the situation, it's almost like you're watching a completely different anime if you slip into each one's perspective. There's something interesting here, and I'm curious to see where it's going with the second core.
For me, this is a highly rated anime. And matter of fact, when we posted our episode our last episode for Spy Family Part 2. User on YouTube, Sierra Mists C. Marie, yes, sorry I butchered that, wrote Eminence and Shadow next. Woo! And then I watched it and I was like,
Poor Troy.
what? what?
See,
What is this?
this is so weird because you love silly anime.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, so I've spent a lot of time not only thinking about why don't I like this, why is this not working for me, but then saying, am I a hypocrite? Like, okay, have I ever said I like stuff that? I probably have. Something about it is not clicking with me to the point where I'm mostly here to find out why other people like it, so that when I watch the second half, maybe I can get on board a little bit. But this was rough. This to me is the worst anime we've watched all year. Now, please know, I consider this a flaw in me rather than the anime based on everyone else's viewpoints.
I was
So
about to say,
I'm not telling anyone their taste is bad. I'm just saying I'm not getting it. I'm just not.
welcome to my world with Space Dandy.
Okay,
Fair enough.
that's fair. That's fair. I wanna rebuttal it somehow, but I can't. If this had like a 5.5 on my anime list, like everyone was dogging it, I could be like, oh, okay, no, you're an idiot. Space Dandy's a classic. But no, people are like this. We don't get comments excited about the next episode. That's not usual in our YouTube comments. So I don't know, but I'm gonna try not to be a total bummer and a downer the whole episode, and let these guys tell you why they like it. But man, it don't listen to me if this is your kind of jam. It sucks. All right. Your guys' thoughts on the opening and closing. Oh god, the opening and closing.
highest.
The OP is pretty good. I really like the visuals. The songs, better than average. Definitely not something I'm going to put in a playlist anywhere, but adds to and you mentioned it in our pre-show, Troy. It definitely showcases like something really cool going on, right? And it almost doesn't give what's actually going on, which is a little strange, but or at least so far. I mean, it may change in the next four.
No, it doesn't. It's an opening for a different anime with the same character.
I don't know. I don't know if it changes in core 2 if we get a different opening. If
Yeah,
it doesn't, then I'm thinking maybe what we're seeing is a glimpse of what's coming.
Yeah, season 2 maybe.
You think?
But
you?
No spoilers.
I'm totally joking, by the way, but because I don't think that. But I'm really hoping that some of that OP is explained in the second half. But anyways, the EDs I skipped them because they were just.
What's the point?
But there was zero reason to watch it. In my opinion, I'm sure there's a lot of younger men that would love to watch it. However, I was not impressed with the ED.
Oh, the ED just cracks me up. It's like all of his harem girls draw straws, and which one of them is it going to be this time? What the heck? But yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. The intro it was all right. I didn't mind the OP. The music was pretty good. I especially liked the very beginning of it. There's something cool about the way that beat goes. But as far as okay, so the anime has a sort of melancholy and melodrama to it at the very beginning, and I think the OP mirrors that fairly well. But the anime does not stick with that. It's gone after like the first episode, I would say. I don't think it sticks around at all. You have a mock melodrama that comes back after that. And the OP sort of has this melodrama at the beginning, and then it goes into this action spiral introducing the characters and everything. And then it just goes into like a weird futuristic thing for this world, like modern day thing. And I kind of wonder if that's in the future based on what's happening with the characters. To stay spoiler free, I don't want to go into too many details, but I kind of think the same thing with the change of outfits. If that has something to do with a couple of comments that are made about 2/3 of the way through the first 10 episodes. So I do see potential that maybe there's something here. There might even be a schism in Shadow Garden. I don't know. But yeah, I like it. It's got me intrigued. The intro has me intrigued.
Troy's like, you're giving this way too much credit.
I feel like you're doing so much work to be like, I think they're like interesting here.
What? You cut out.
Oh, I feels like you're just trying to build up to this. There could be something interesting. It's just so much work to get to. Maybe it's interesting. I think it's completely a fantasy sequence because in the OP, a TV is turned off and it switches to
That's true.
his character.
He's just changing channels.
He's just I think it was very much like a random fantasy in his head, and he turns it off. But we'll see. 10 episodes left.
Are you counting down already?
No, I actually, the best thing about this anime is it's only 10 episodes core.
Where's Space Dandy with 6 episodes of core?
No, thank goodness. It's not. I know what my winter pick's gonna be.
Okay, I actually did like the opening. Even though
For
I
a
just felt
different
like
anime.
for a different anime.
Yeah.
And the closing is just if I was 13, I would love it. I know I would have loved it. I would have watched every single one, and I would have rewound it and watched it again. I am 40 in a couple months. I'm like, no thanks. I don't want to watch this set of stuff anymore. It's just not for me. So, and also it was so long out. I was like, just show me boobs. If you're gonna show me boobs, just get it over with and let's go on to the next episode. I don't need to take 2 minutes. Yeah, I don't even like puzzles. Whatever. Yeah. So I'm probably not gonna remember very much by next episode. Okay. Our next anime, which we usually announce here, is more of this. If you're them,
round 2.
Yeah.
Yay. If you're me, wah.
Who knows? Maybe it'll blow your expectations away in the next one.
I'm
there's a
hoping
lot of breadcrumbs here.
I honestly have been trying really hard to be fair to it. But like you've mentioned, it's a power fantasy. Those usually I have no appeal to them. My power fantasy is I very much am like underdog defeating the odds. Goku is my power fantasy because he's always the weakest and then he becomes the strongest. That's fun. Just being OP all the time just is not entertaining to me. All right, spoiler section. Jason, did you know we're about to give spoilers for this entire 10 episode core?
You trying to preemptively
Wait.
eliminate the question later?
Do you remember last episode where you said I forgot? Just making sure we all hear it. Jeremy, you too. Spoiler warning. We're dropping the spoiler warning. Spoilers are coming for the rest of the 10 episodes. Characters
feeling a little belabored.
I'm not dragging my feet. I definitely want to talk about this anime, guys.
Wait, did you drop a spoiler warning?
First episode. I'm going to go through this whole first episode before we talk about the main character.
Fair enough.
Okay. This first episode starts. And I'm like, the app has messed up. It is showing me the wrong anime. There is this girl.
First scene. Girl wakes up, gets in shower.
Girl wakes up, panty shot in bed, goes to shower. I'm like, oh no, no,
Jason,
you want
to do?
You want to know what this anime is about? You just saw it.
To its credit, though, I do appreciate when they're up front with like, hey, we're about this. You're not here for this. You can walk away now. So I do appreciate that. As someone who's not here for this, who has to watch it anyway, I feel like my fingernails are scratching at the floor. I'm dragged away. All right, so she is a child star, famous actress. She goes to school. She runs into the main character, and we're getting her inner monologue this entire episode. she's like, I hate this freaking guy. He's the worst. And she comes up to him and it's like all nice to him because she's nice to everyone. She wears a mask. She's always the nice person. And he doesn't remember her name. She's like, he's the worst. And then she goes to school. And then we see her driver get assaulted, and so she has to walk home, and it's all part of a kidnapping plot, and she gets kidnapped. And this guy she hates sees it. She gets kidnapped. He goes to the warehouse, and he drops his weighted clothing. Part 2 of this is what this anime is, guys.
It's so bad.
I haven't thought weighted clothing was cool since Goku fought Raditz.
Yeah, since like the 90s.
And also I was 13, and that's when I'm
Right.
like, oh no, he's one of them. He's who I was. I honestly think if I was 13, I would love this anime. Like, I don't mean that as an insult, like it sounds, but I do think there's a time in my life I would have enjoyed it. Anyway, he goes in and he fights off the 2 kidnappers, and he beats the first one easily. And then the second one is a trained soldier. He's like, oh, I've been looking for a fight. And he's like, oh, I've always wanted to go against a soldier. And he doesn't do so great at first. He's like, okay, no, but I got 2 crowbars, so I wasn't even trying my hardest. And he goes through this long rant about how useful crowbars are to beat people to death, which he then does. Beats this man.
Kills him.
And
Yeah, he doesn't kill this guy because he gets hauled away. Well, actually, we saw the other guy get hauled away with his face visible.
Both
I don't
of them
know.
were tied up when what's her face
You're
wakes
right.
Oh, so they did survive.
But
don't
he
remember
did
them.
say that the bikers started wearing helmets so that his blows wouldn't kill them. So he has been killing bikers. He is a murderer.
He
This
is
guy's
a
not a
murderer.
good guy.
Right.
No.
And it's not just like, bam, I got you, I win. It's bam, oh please God, stop, bam, oh God, have
Yes.
mercy, bam.
Yes.
And then he goes. She thinks he's gonna assault her. Also, there was like a start of a rape scene. I'm like, oh my gosh. But he saved the day and he sets her free, and then he leaves.
Mm.
And then she
Without
goes
ever
home.
discovering his identity.
Yep, and she goes home. It's all covered up, and when she goes to school the next day, this also took a whole episode. I'm going very fast. She gets to school the next day. She says hi to him, and he remembers her name. And then on the news, we see he was killed by a truck.
Yeah, and she
If I-
doesn't matter again.
No, none of this mattered. This was just to get to the I died. This is actually an isekai. This all happened in the real world.
It's backstory. You need to know what he was like in the real world before.
Right.
Okay, no, we didn't. But
You need to know
No.
this guy, this 15-year-old kid, Batman, which is what he's doing. Like he trained in every martial arts. He weightlifted 900 times a day. He was a superhuman among men. And
but he couldn't survive an atomic bomb.
That's a
couldn't survive an
serious
atomic
weakness.
which he freaked out about and ran into the road and got hit by a truck.
Screaming magic. Magic, magic, magic. Oh,
So this is our main character.
so dumb.
There's guys. His name is the same in both worlds. I don't know if
You're
I've
right.
ever seen that, especially where they're reborn.
Yeah.
Where they kept their name.
That
He's
is a
Sid
good point.
Kagano in both worlds. Anyway, this is Sid Kagano. Your guys' thoughts on Sid?
I like him because of just his attitude and the way he goes about his vigilantism. But also, like I mentioned in the opening, like his rejection of the harem anime that's happening around him is just really great entertainment to watch. It's almost like a sport. And also, like, there's no pretext that how powerful he is, because just there's been no challenge for him up to this point. And so with characters like that, it's more important to watch how they deal with a situation and not the foes they dispose of. And I think what's really entertaining and funny is watching these contrived situations happen to where this dude is the luckiest person ever, but he wants to be the edgiest of edgelords at the same time. So it's this constant battle of I want to do what I want to do. Oh, now I'm deep into this because I agreed to something that I probably shouldn't have. And it's almost like a comedic, 1-2 kind of rolling snowballing situation, because it's like he saves one, he ends up saving one girl, and then all of a sudden he's got an organization under him, and then all of a sudden he's got a multi-million-dollar corporation. and and so it's just like this weird, it's just really funny to watch. I'm enjoying it.
You hear me? No. This honestly, it's good, because I'm gonna have a hard time recapping it in a positive way. You guys gotta sell this. You gotta save the podcast, so they'll come for us with.
I'll put this out
torch.
right at the beginning. This is silly. A lot of it is silly, and it's not silly for silly's sake. It's silly for contrivancy, and that's why I think it's kind of hitting that right comedic button for me. Because if it was silly for silly's sake, I probably wouldn't enjoy it.
What would the difference be? Like, silly for silly's sake is just like dumb jokes that don't necessarily have a root in mocking the isekai and power fantasy, because that's what I see, is that, like, and not mocking in a bad way. I think it's doing a good job at it. Like, it's
It's
making
like a
fun
parody.
of, yeah, it's like a parody of power fantasy. It's a parody of isekai. It's a parody. Like, this guy is an improv master, and he's super lucky. Like, he's rolling criticals constantly, every single roll, and that to me is the silly part. Is like you're saying, it's pure contrivancy. There's no way that this could happen unless it's either he really did die and this is like his own personal afterlife or something, and that's why he gets to keep his name, and that's why everything goes his way, or somehow he's related to this prophecy and it's fated for him. I don't know. I can't think of anything else that would explain why he has so much power, why he's so successful. Everything is in his favor. Even the stories he comes up with by reading a bottle of alcohol. I mean, it reminds me of the Family Guy episode where Peter is pretending to be a young person at school, and they ask him what his name is, and he looks over and he sees a P, and then he sees a tear, and then he sees a griffin, and so he says P-tier griffin. It's like, it's the same thing where it's like he just makes up something, and oh wow, that happens to actually be true, and now becomes the plot underneath everything that's happening with this character, which is like the silly isekai side of it. It becomes the sort of undercurrent, serious plot line that's going on through the whole thing. How did he get that lucky? It's silly for that reason to me. So I kind of like it for the same way. I find him to be somewhat abrasive of a character, just because I like characters that have a distinct ethic to them. Like, they really, they're interested in achieving good. And I don't that's why I couldn't stick with Overlord when he went full on evil. I'm like, oh, this just turns my stomach. I can't watch it. But with this guy, he makes a point later on in the episode to say, Shadow Garden is neither good nor evil. We just follow my path, whatever my path happens to be today. And then when one of his henchmen find out later, she's like, I had thought we were a righteous organization. And so I like that little mixture. So I like what they're doing they're not just taking him and making him sort of this amoral character who is only concerned with the world that he's fabricating in his own mind. They're also even taking his subordinates and saying, well, how are they going to react to this? Because, what's their story? What's their perspective going to be to his behavior? And at first it seems like she's, well, he's the boss. We're going to do what the boss says. But I wonder how long that's going to stand. And I think that's what the LP might be hinting at, but I don't know.
That they're going to battle him?
Yeah, which is why they'd be in white, because they're not in shadow anymore.
If that comes true, this is a way more interesting anime than I can currently give it credit for. That's a beautiful idea. I love that idea. I don't see it happening, but I'm hoping I'm wrong.
Yeah.
All right, it's not that there's really anything wrong with the character, and that's what's actually wrong with the character. He's just kind of has no struggles, has no problems.
His struggle is trying to stay in the background, and he can't
No,
do it.
no, that's not a struggle.
It's his self-imposed struggle.
Yes. he is backgrounding so hard. He's backgrounding harder than anyone's backgrounded before.
Yes.
Yeah,
like when they're beating him and he's like, I can do the background character better than you can do the background interrogator.
If Bruce Wayne spent more time training to be Bruce Wayne in public than he ever did to be Batman, but then also had Superman powers.
Mm-hmm.
I think you guys are right on with the parody. I think they're trying to do that. I just think they're failing. I think they're like, hey, we're gonna do there's like all these tropes and all these things, that every power fantasy or isekai does, but instead of like subverting them or making them interesting or making them funny, they're just doing them. And they're like,
No, they're making them funny. They're making fun of him.
How is his power level funny?
Well, I mean, I think it's not necessarily that it's funny so much as that they're giving us an opportunity to see that there's a bigger impact from his power level than just him doing cool, super powered things, right? Like we talked in the pre-show about how he annihilates a huge chunk of the town at the end of episode 5.
Is that the joke?
Well, it's not so much a joke as a deconstruction. Like,
yeah, and criticizing of it.
Yeah.
Because like we get one of the authority figures going like, yeah, Shadow Garden helped with us tracking down this thing, but they're still our enemy because they're terrible vigilantes and they're causing massive public damage. I mean, they're not responsible, but they're not exactly good guys when it came to burning down an entire university. Like
well, they didn't burn down the university, but
no, but they didn't help, and they had the power to stop it.
I mean, they could have put that fire out in an instant.
They could have prevented those incendiary devices from even going off. I mean,
okay. I get your argument using the character Iris as the moral compass for the actions of these characters, which doesn't really help the point of the parody or satire. But
I think it's a mixture of parody and deconstruction. I don't think it's pure parody. I think it's that's why I was saying like there's levels to this. They're
leaning hard into like, well, if we've got this super powerful character in this world, well, obviously this particular fight's going to go his way. Like it's not even going to be a challenge. And so and this is something that I usually complain about. There are no stakes for this main character. So what we're really watching is not a action anime. We're watching nearly a slice of life.
Yeah, for him, and a horror for everybody else.
But see, like where Overlord started like shoving in our face how horrible some of the actions he was committing was. This one is just like, hey, giant crater. And then has one character like, nah, I'm going to investigate this. I guess I'm just not buying into they're selling it hard enough. And maybe it's there and I'm missing it. That completely because you're right. The character Iris did say that. I remember that happening, but it whizzed right past me, and I was just like, giant crater, man. Giant crater.
Well, I think that like if you look again at Overlord, what you have there is an anime that is really focused on exploring what happens if your protagonist is evil. Right. And so I think it's going to spend a lot more time focusing on those things. I think this anime definitely gives it a sort of intermediary attention more than you'd get out of a normal power fantasy, because a normal power fantasy would either have him be, he'd have such good control of his abilities that he wouldn't vaporize the entire city, or it would just gloss over it like it was not a problem. And so I think this one's trying to head that way, but Overlord does such a good job. It's a hard bar to reach to.
Yeah.
What if Ainz was a complete edgelord?
Kind of is.
Yeah, now definitely. With the skeleton. I can see your point. It's just when I'm watching it, what I'm picking up from the text, and again, it's probably very fair to say that I'm missing it, is just, it feels like they're just going through the regular motions. I felt like they were trying to make fun of the genre, not even make fun, but just like, hey, we're not the genre. We're just like alongside the genre, either parrying it or commenting on it. I did feel like they were trying to do that. I just was not getting that they were succeeding in that. But part 2 could prove me wrong too. So yeah. I hope that they dive into that. There does start to be consequences for Shadow Guardian for his decisions, and then we get to start to see like, oh, maybe the power fantasy isn't so good. But from what I'm seeing, this is, what if a 14-year-old boy got his every wish come true?
Basically.
Yeah, and then no, not and then, just that. But I'll be happy to be wrong. Okay, that was the first episode. That was Sid. He's reborn into the new world. This joke made me laugh. Well, he's not crying. Why isn't he crying? Oh yeah, wah. He grows up as a background character. Personally, if I spent my entire life committed to becoming so physically fit that I could fight soldiers, and then I was reborn and had to do it again, I'd be upset.
Yeah. Muscle memory shouldn't transfer over.
He gets his martial arts. They do make a point of like, this world doesn't know martial arts, and I know all the martial arts, so that gives me advantage. And that's the only time they explain why he's more powerful than anyone, but he's way more powerful than that. Like, he is, well, he's a magic supernova at all times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which makes absolutely zero sense. Because if it has anything to do with training, then surely some of the ancient wizards that have been around for 70, 80 years or more, depending on how old they can get in this world, would be way more powerful than him.
His sister, who's already a superstar talent and is training every time we see her, should also be at least comparable.
No, it's definitely One Punch Man contrivance power level. Like, we get besides, I got magic now, we have zero reason for why he's so strong.
Yeah. Or where his slime or shadow
suit
magic came from.
Thank you. So he's like 10 years old, killing bandits. He's like, I have this slime stuff, and he can just give it to other people, and they just also have it too. But they never say...
It's an amazing spell that no other wizard in this world that magic is native to ever came up with.
And it's insanely powerful. Like, he doesn't even need to be a supernova magic bomb.
Yeah.
He has this slime that can do anything.
Yep.
And he just has it.
Yep. Yeah. I don't like these parts. Unless they're somehow gonna play into, like, I hope he's Diablo. I really hope he's Diablo. And we just find that out later. And then it's like, big twist. Oh, he thought he was fighting against it. He's actually it. And Shadow Guardian has to fight him. That would be cool. But I don't know.
He doesn't know Diablo exists. He was reading a ketchup bottle.
I know.
Okay.
Would Diablo know he's Diablo, though?
So in the scene, he's like 9, 10 years old. Slaughters a bunch of bandits, testing out his new slime suit. Walks over to the dead wagoneers, merchants, people who were being robbed by the red bandits. He's like, oh, sorry you had to die. Look at all this cool stuff I just get. That's I'm like, oh no. He's one of them. Finds
he didn't kill the merchants. The bandits killed the merchants.
But it kind of sounds like he could have saved them a little more.
Yeah, I mean, he says you've been avenged, but I don't know.
They were dead before he got there.
Maybe.
Let's just hope.
Maybe.
Finds a horrific creature in a cage and is like, cool, I can experiment on this. Takes it to a shed and starts casting magic on it, which happens to cure it, revert it back to its original
Relieves
form.
it of its curse. Yeah.
The way he kind of explains it is like it's this uncontrolled, outward bound mess of magic that's causing her body to do this. And so even though he's injecting more magic, what he's doing is he's controlling the magic that's there. And as he's able to stabilize it is what makes the curse go away. At least that's how I took it.
So that would explain why these girls are all so powerful too, is if they had they're basically the only ones that wound up with this curse are the ones that had a massive amount of magic that it deformed them, made them into monsters. That helps explain that.
So he starts seeing this naked elf girl start waking up. He's like, oh, I got to pose. And he runs over to a box and he gets in like this cool position. He's like, I am Shadow and I have freed you. He's like, oh, what'd you free me from? A curse. Who cursed me? Diablo, the cult of Diablo, which is again on a ketchup bottle in the background.
This is the Peter moment.
Yeah, and so she's like, oh, okay. Well, and he gives her a slime suit as well, because apparently you could just replicate it anytime. But
it's amazing.
Multiple characters have it
at
some point. Yeah, okay.
Like all of Shadow Garden has it, don't they?
All the numbered ones. The other ones seem to just have cloaks.
Oh, okay.
Names her Alpha, and she swears her life to serve him and defeat the cult of Diablo. Now, we got to talk about Shadow Garden, but I also want to talk about his whole framing of mind, because he made this up for a game that he's playing. He literally did just kill bandits. He could go out and be a hero and fight crime and fight supervillains and have that, but he wants to play a game with his strength and make up bad guys in his head, but use the bandits as characters in the game.
Yeah.
I have that right?
Yeah. Yep. At this point in his life, that's what he's doing.
Does that end at any point in these 10 episodes?
Yes, I think it ends after he fights someone who says, I'm from the cult of Diablos. I think at that point, he's like, oh, okay, so the cult of Diablos is real. Doesn't mean he's necessarily going after them. He still doesn't really care about them unless they cross his path.
What really ticks him off is when they start impersonating his group. And then he's like, okay, they need to be destroyed.
He really is all about just his own imagination. Like, he does not give a crap about what's happening around him.
It seems like a radical concept to me that he real world trains, got real world powerful. And again, even before the magic world, like he was super strong, could fight soldiers for a game.
Yeah. Well, he has there's a contradiction from the very beginning in his goal. His goal is, I want to be the Eminence in Shadow that nobody knows about, so that everybody knows about my name. Everybody sees how great I am. Like, you can't have both those things. Like, you'll never get credit if you're always the Eminence in Shadow. So he gets off on the idea of, I'm super powerful. People know that my persona did this thing. They just don't know it's me. Ha 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 ha. It's me. Ha 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 ha.
Again, to show you I'm not understanding the text of the story here, I asked these guys multiple times, so does he think this is the cult? And then Jeremy's like, no, he thinks these are just bandits.
Bandits.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
It doesn't fit. It's like a puzzle piece that doesn't fit in my brain. And maybe that's the whole tumbling tower for me. Okay. Shadow Garden. Guys, Alpha recruits a bunch of others, so he saves other monstrous creatures, turns them back to their regular form, and they all join this.
His family never questions where, like, these 7 young girls that show up and
girls.
like, help him as maids and stuff, and they wander around and help the boy. His parents don't ask, no questions, no nothing. 7 of them. So weird.
This is one of the first breadcrumbs that kind of piqued my interest as far as like an undertone that hopefully will flourish, but probably won't. Is that these girls? There seems to be a epidemic of these really powerful girls that end up getting touched by something or someone, or are cursed upon by something or someone, and turned into these monstrous blobs. I'm wondering if there is a stronger organization or maybe a stronger layer of the Cult of Diablos that's actually doing that. And that's what I'm really interested to see fleshed out, is like, who's doing to these girls, and what's their motivations? Like, why are they doing it? Like, what kind of experimentation are they doing? And then how are they going to get stopped? Because right now, like, Sid is and his organization are tracking down what they can, but only when they present themselves. They're unable to find them on a reliable basis.
Yeah, there's also the fact that his sister, it said that he healed his sister. She started to turn into one of these monsters. And one of the questions I had is, if he healed his sister and she was turned into one of these monsters, or started to, why is she not at the same power level as his 7? If it has something to do with being healed, the process of being healed, or the process of becoming one of the cursed, she's not at their power level. And also, why is Iris not one of the monsters? If it has to do with having a huge overflow of magic, being super powerful, why are not the other females that are like super powered, why did they not get turned into these?
Maybe they just haven't been attacked by whoever is cursing them.
Maybe, but that would mean that his sister was attacked by whoever that was too at some point, which is possible. There was a lot of talk about like the hero's blood and how closely you're related to them, like how pure-blooded you are, and that the royal line is very close. They think that's what it is, but Iris is not one of them, so I tend to disagree. I'm more in your boat. This has to be caused by some kind of third party.
I'll say this. We do need to talk about Shadow Garden themselves, but I'll say this about the cult and the world building. I do think that it's interesting. The fact that I am getting it piecemeal through a point of view character who could not care less about it.
Yeah.
Ruins it a lot for me, because I'm like, oh, there's some information. Okay, bye. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we gotta be a background character now. Because I was trying to pick up, like, in the first kidnapping, we see the locket. The second kidnapping, the locket's there, and like, oh, those are connected. That's that daughter. There's definitely links to all these things being strung about, and I was trying to pay attention to them, but it's hard to care when the main character doesn't care.
Yeah, I cared despite the main character, because the world building. That's
Same.
just kind of how. Yeah.
Yep. For me, it's almost like any anime. It doesn't matter how much I dislike the story or the characters. If I'm always watching the background, always watching the world building. I'm like, oh, this is cool.
Okay, we need to talk about Shadow Guard, the 7 girls he rescues who are his elite operatives, and the organization. They grow and become a multi-million gold Zenny corporation.
Is this TBC?
Thoughts?
Okay, so I love the joke of he gets into high school, he thinks that he's just never going to see these girls again, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, we have hundreds of employees in this organization that we have, and we've grown to massive amounts of power and wealth.
And he's like, oh, did they hire extras?
Right. But I do, and this is part of that world building I was talking about, is I really like that they have a specific goal of basically revenge. Like, who turned us into these things? My life was miserable before Sid, and now I want to destroy them. And that underpinning, and like that happening in the background, and Sid kind of helping when they enlist his help has been really neat to watch. Like that one like boardroom scene that they had where they were like, hey, there's like, here's some business that we have to discuss. Oh, there's another organization posing as us. What are we going to do? All of that little breadcrumbs of like a bigger world that's going on beyond Sid. I'm really, really digging.
Mm-hmm. Another weird contrivance is that every single one of these numbered characters is female. Is back to the 13-year-old, and so I don't know if the entire 114 that they got are also. I wouldn't be surprised if they're also female.
I don't
That
remember
just
seeing
looked
any males in the background.
Not
I
one.
never saw any. So that to me is just, it's more of the contrivance humor of like, hey, this is so ridiculous. Let's make it even more ridiculous. Let's turn into this curve, right? So for that reason, when I first saw Shadow Garden and the way that they were headed with it, I thought, oh, this is going to be really, really dumb. This is going to be super stupid. But the fact that they're actually, I think they're doing a fairly good job slowly, very, very slowly, developing a little bit of information about the characters. Like one of them is just a plagiarist. Like she's literally just ripping off stories from Earth, a Dragon Bowl, and the Crimson, the little Crimson Rider, and but she actually wants to write like romance stories about about Shadow saving her. Like there's some funny stuff coming from them, and it's not all like, oh, cute girl that wants to sleep with him humor. There's genuine, interesting backstory humor going on. And I'm curious, especially like I mentioned before, there's potential for disagreement to come up between him and these members of Shadow Garden. And I only leave that open because they're treating Shadow Garden as if it actually matters, as if these characters are entities that are going to matter in the story. They're developing them as much as they're developing some of the other characters we're seeing in his fake backstory life. And so for that reason, I like Shadow Garden. I also like some of the subtle touches. Like they're aware of certain things that I didn't expect. I just didn't think that they were going to be that good. Maybe I just have a really low bar from this anime. Like at the very beginning, my bar just got really lowered. But like when Shadow Garden was waiting to come into the school because of the anti-magic field, and they were like, oh, this is not completely cutting our magic off, but it's really hampering it. We're having trouble with it. And all of a sudden, like one of the girls looks over and the other girl's suit's like slowly disappearing. And so she's like naked, and then she's like, wait, oh no. And the camera shifts away. I was like, that's it. That was a good subtle touch of like, you did a stupid idea of having their entire outfit be made of magic, and you're showing us what happens if they're in an anti-magic field. It's good. But there's some good writing.
There's a scene where these two girls with big busts are talking to each other about their bust and how Sid has affected them. But in the shot, a random character finds a cat and like gets in the way of the camera, and the shot, if it was like a movie, the shot would be ruined. The director would have to yell cut. Like this gets in the way of the whole scene. Finding, oh, there's a little cat. Come here, like, and right in the camera's face. So there's definitely interesting things going on. I actually think Shadow Garden has some of the most interesting characters. I think they're underdeveloped compared to some of the characters who are almost one and done.
Some of them are
in this story.
Developing. Oh wait,
like Epsilon.
Let's talk about Alpha specifically. Your guys' thoughts on Alpha, but for me, Alpha's one of the most compelling characters because not only was she turned into this monster and then saved, and now is basically leading this organization, because we know Sid isn't really doing anything against this cult of, like, she's running MI6 in this fantasy world, and that's an interesting story that we're not really getting to see. We just hear, oh, here's Alpha found this out, like the end where she finds the dead bishop. I'm like, okay, now this is interesting. Okay, he's eating ice cream on the roof. Never mind.
Yep.
And also like how powerful she is. She's obviously like she's catching up to Sid as far as power level, because she put Iris to shame, and so but she, like Sid, is choosing to stay in the shadows, staying out of any sort of spotlight. I don't know. I find it compelling to find out more about like where this story's going.
A question: did you guys see any other elves or beast people?
In fact, the only it looks like Shadow Garden is a mix of the two, but the only time I ever see other races are in Shadow Garden.
And it's always the 7. Like, I'm not seeing any of the extra 114 or whatever, or I guess it'd be 107. I'm not seeing any of them that don't look human. So it's just this group of 7. So
that's another breadcrumb that I noticed as well. That I'm like, oh wow, there's something else going on here.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on Alpha herself?
Sorry, I got distracted again. What are you gonna do? It's Beast Girls.
She doesn't have enough screen time. I will definitely agree with that, because she is. Yeah, you're right. She's running the secret organization, and we don't get to see a lot of her doing it. We just get secondhand of it.
And she's the one that said, I had thought we were a righteous organization. So
no, I thought that was Gamma.
No,
I thought it was
Alpha. No, it was Alpha. It was the blonde elf.
Okay.
So the reason I think that matters is because if the leader of the organization is like internally disagreeing with the big boss, that is interesting.
His sister gets kidnapped on the day she's supposed to go to school, which is at 15 years old. And he's like, I guess bandits kidnapped her. And so his Shadow Garden girls are like, we're searching. We've narrowed it down to these places. And he's like, well, we're obviously going to go here. And he throws the knife and he misses the location and hits a random spot. And they're like, genius, Lord. That's, of course, where they're going to be hiding. And, of course, it is.
Critical. C20 roll.
That's okay. So I had watched that first episode and I was like, this is taking itself so seriously with the beating to death. And I'm like, oh, this is serious. And then I'm watching this one and I'm like, this is so silly. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And I still am not really, I'm not sold that it's supposed to always be silly, because in its dramatic moments, it feels like it's taking itself super serious. But anyway, okay.
That's where I was saying. I think it's like juggling things. It doesn't want to fit into one of those molds in its entirety. Like it wants to go back and forth.
I was under the impression you liked stories that subverted expectations.
But I didn't,
especially bad ones.
But it has to create an expectation first. What was I expecting? A good story? Oh, you got me.
Oh, gotcha.
Last Jedi was great. Fuck you. All right.
Do not.
The sister is kidnapped. The Shadow Garden girls go and they find her, and he gets in his shadow thing, and they all go to the base. We see the sister like bust out of her chains when someone even insults her brother. It seems like she's got kind of a brother thing going, but they don't explore it
herself.
Yeah, names her hand. But yeah, so they get there and Shadow Garden's taking out all the minions, and this guy, the leader, pops some red pills, gets powerful, and he gets away. And they're like, why was the Shadow with us? They're like, Shadow, he's got a plan. They're like, oh, he was ready for him to get away. Perfect. Well, then we see Sid, and he's like, I am so lost. And then the boss walks in front of him. He's like, bonus.
Yeah.
And so
he also says, I guess I got lost. I was having so much fun taking out the low-level minions. Everything is a game to him. The backstory, dating game, like everything is a game.
And Actually, I don't think at first he realizes this is the boss. He's just like, oh, another enemy. Like he has no idea who this person is.
Mm-hmm.
The guy powers up with more pills, but it doesn't matter because Sid is Sid, and he wins and kills him. And the guy's like, "My daughter," and drops a locket. They don't rescue the sister. She gets out herself and gets home.
Mhm.
They like left her there, and then she goes to school the next day.
All healed. Because
And then all the shadow members say goodbye. And he thinks, we find this out in the next episode, he thinks they're like, hey, we've grown up. We're done playing games.
Yeah.
They don't. They go off to start that multi-million corporation underground syndicate to defeat the cult of Diablo. And from this point on, he thinks whenever they show up, they're like taking pity on him and like playing with him for old time's sake.
Mm-hmm.
That's his
Plus,
life.
when one of them shows up, she brings a hamburger in like hamburger wrapping.
Yeah,
It looks like it's
she
from a
visited
modern
McDonald's.
restaurant. Yeah, that was so weird.
He probably taught him how to cook hamburgers, how he likes them, and then they bring it to him
Wrapped up like
wrapped up.
that.
That's how he
yeah,
likes
maybe.
it.
Yeah, that's how he likes it.
They created chocolate in string underwear.
Well, but remember, all he did was he told her they take some beans, cook them up, throw sugar on it, and then they get hard and they're yummy. Like, that's his explanation for chocolate. Didn't even tell her, like, what the beans were.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, they leave. He turns 15 and he moves to the capital for school. And he loses a bet. So anything that happens in his regular life is completely orchestrated by him to make him the perfect background character. He spends so much time focusing on this. I cannot stress this enough. If you have not watched the anime, it is 75% of the anime. How do I be a cool or an uncool background character?
Average.
Forgettable person.
Perfectly average.
The only danger he's ever put in this entire 10 episode season or arc is because he had to fit the background character stereotype so hard that he literally let himself die temporarily.
Yes.
And it's like that actually could have killed me, but worth it. Background.
Yeah.
So anyway,
That backfires on him. I love it.
He has to do a love confession to this popular princess, and he bumbles it like he's seen on so many anime, in a classic background character way. And she's like,
he goes down and like he's got this huge smile on his face, like he nailed it. She's totally gonna reject me.
Would you want to, like, I really like you.
And then he bows and puts his arm out.
And she accepts, and so they're dating.
And then he looks up. He's like, "Wait, what? No, this is not supposed to be happening."
No, I'm dating the most popular girl in school. Like, she sits with him at lunch. He starts stealing her lunch to try to get her to dump him, but she takes him to her sword training class. She signs him up for her class, which is the elites, and they start sparring together. And her whole thing is she is the master of the basics. Like, she doesn't do anything fancy. She just does the basics, but she's honed them to perfection. And that's kind of his fighting style too. He doesn't get all flashy. And so she gets upset whenever they fight. 'Cause she's like, it's like fighting myself. And she doesn't like her fighting style. So she gets really grumpy. But then they meet her fiance, who's the instructor of the class.
Arranged fiance, right?
Arranged, betrothed, yeah.
Yeah.
So they have a discussion. He's like, "You're just using me because it's him," and she's like, "Yeah, but you were just using me for your bet. I overheard, or no, I made your friends tell me the truth." So they come to an agreement that they'll help each other out, and she's gonna pay him. And you love this scene. You can tell us why.
Well, he's like, I basically like saying, "Hey, this isn't working out. I think we should break up." And so she's like, "Well, what if I make it worth your while?" And throws this like gold coin onto the ground. He's like, "You think I'm willing to bend that low to get money? Because I will. He picks it up off the ground. He says, I'm a puppy now. Ruff, ruff. Give me more
He
money.
calls him her puppy. He starts barking. Now, and the reason is he needs funds for his game, not his organization.
Right.
He needs to be able to buy like
This is
paintings
selfish.
and classic wine for so
Mm-hmm.
he can complete the look of the Eminence in Shadow.
Yes.
And his parents
So-
don't give him a lot for an allowance, even though they're vastly wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
So they date for a while, and then after a few weeks, they have a conversation about her fighting style, and he actually compliments it because she hates it so much she gets mad at him, and he's like, well, I don't like it when people diss things that I like, so they break up. And then the next day he goes to school and he's arrested because she has disappeared. And this character, this princess, is Alexia. And I thought most characters feel very one and done, especially these background character relationships. But she gets to stick around a lot. So what do you guys think of Alexia?
I like her. I think she's got a lot of potential moving forward. And I also like how ambitious she is for being as underpowered as she is. Because the anime makes it very clear she's not on her sister's level, not due to purely skill, but she doesn't have the magical fortitude that her sister does. So because of that, she is got a chip on her shoulder. She's always trying to prove herself. But she's also got this elegance about her where she, she's high society and needs to, portray that. But also underneath, like, there's quite a few scenes where she's not like above the lower classes, if you will. She seems to be very engaging to anybody.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite scenes with her was when she is captured and we see her down in the dungeon, and this mad doctor
You
is
sick
rambling.
monster.
Yeah, no, it's. I gotta finish. It's not just that. The way she responded to the doctor, right? Like, she's strapped down to this table, and he's going to come and take her blood. And there's a monster in the cell next to her, and like the bars are busted between them, right? So this is like the most stressful, dangerous, terrifying horror situation anybody could be in. Most people, whether they're real or scripted, whether it's a story that you're going to write and these characters you're going to make up, they're not going to have the wherewithal and the mental fortitude and also the sort of melancholic I don't know if it's depression or maybe something else I'm reaching for here, but she's literally sitting there in the chair commiserating with the doctor in a sort of mocking way, but it's also just to kind of subdue him. Just, yeah, go on, doctor. I know I can't stop you. So just, do what you're going to do. So he'll complain and she's like, yeah, that sucks. That's terrible. Not once does she yell like, release me from this, let me go. Do you know who I am? Of course he knows who she is, right? Like, she doesn't throw the tantrum that you would normally see or give in to the fear. She's holding a dismissive conversation with him. And she's fully taking in everything around her and making sense of it to the point where she even warns him before he's going to die. And she's like, oh, I wouldn't do that. Oh, yeah. See, that's why I shouldn't have done that.
And what's nice about this scene as well is, like, you're right. This is, normally in anime, when you have a princess character or a main female character, they're much more fragile. They're much more intimidated. But, she is in a Dark Knight school. They are soldiers. They're in basically a soldier's school.
Mm-hmm.
And she portrays herself one even in a captured situation, and that really was nice to see that she's not just a strong woman character. She is skilled. She is a soldier.
Now, I would say that whether it's like a medieval school or whether it's a modern like military training facility, until you've been on the battlefield the first time, it's all just academic knowledge. And so you don't know how well you're going to perform in a dungeon or how well you're going to perform on the team. So assuming this is the first time she got kidnapped, and I don't know, maybe it wasn't, but assuming this is the first time she got put in such a stressful situation, this was a great showing on her part. This was absolutely fantastic. And it endeared her to me as more of a real character than anime usually does. Usually anime characters, no matter how well they're done, still feel like anime characters. They still feel somewhat artificial. And just this sequence of responses and this behavior and the way they drew her eyes and how like she had given up hope, right? She had no pupils anymore in her eyes. It was just the red, the deep red, because she'd been down there for days strapped to that table. I don't know how they dealt with like how she went to the bathroom and whatnot, because I'm sure she was doing that down there. Maybe magic. I don't know. But yeah, well, the thought of that, like, to me, that brings home the entire scene of who this character is, that she endured all that. She was in that much of a state when everything resolved itself and was finally finished. And then later we see, as she's recovering and everything, we see her dealing with like other things that pop up in town, hunting down people calling themselves the Shadow Garden. And then now she's arguing about thongs and she really wants it. Like she's a broad character. Like she gets a lot of beats and you get a more complex understanding of who she is. And I think it's deep enough that she feels more real than they usually do. I appreciated that with her.
I actually agree, especially for this anime, but I felt like she was the more well-developed character, probably more so than Sid. The only thing I want to add is that I was really happy they didn't just chuck her to the side, because I don't have the sister as a character to talk about, but I thought she was going to be super interesting. She's this powerful character, and she's entwined in Sid's life, and I thought she was going to be like, what's going on here? We see a couple scenes with her, like when he gets arrested here, her wanting to go break him out, but I kind of thought her life and his life would intertwine more, and she'd always be like, what is he up to? What is this Shadow Garden? Is he involved somehow? And I thought that would be an interesting dynamic, and they don't do that. But they do keep Alexia around way more than they did the sister, and the show was better for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of actually the one contrivances that really bugs me is that every time he runs into people in his normal life as Shadow, he doesn't have a face mask. He barely has a hood covering his head.
It's got to be magic.
Yeah, but it's not visible. Like his shadow magic is visible.
At least it's not visible to the audience. So it's like, how did they not recognize that that's Sid?
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean, though, is like he has shape-shifting magic. That's what shadow magic is. And that's visible to the audience. So, like, if you're going to say there's illusion magic that's not visible to the audience, you should at least give us, some existence of it, like mention it or something.
Yeah, because there's plenty of times where, Alexia and another character that we're going to talk about later see his face fully in the light, and it's like, how you have deep relationship with this person? How do you not recognize her face? Yeah, he's got a hood on.
The one where I decided there's got to be some magic tomfoolery happening here, besides just his eyes turning red, is in that in the final fight with
which is inconsistent.
Sherry's father. He literally fights Sid, knocks him out the window, and then Sid's like, "Oh, I'm beaten," and then jumps back in as Shadow and is like, "Now fight me." And the guy doesn't go, Didn't you just fall out the window? And he's like, "Oh, new guy."
Yeah. Well, but then at the end, as he's dying, he starts laughing and he's like, "Oh, so that's how it is," because he's looking at Sid's face. So he suddenly recognizes him. So to your point, maybe Sid dropped the illusion at that point because he does want to be known. Maybe he only wants to be known by the villains he kills.
I feel like I noticed that. I feel like I noticed his eyes weren't red when he got recognized there.
And actually, if you notice most of his fights, especially when he comes in at first, they're red, and then during the fight, they turn back to gray.
Oh, God.
It's not consistent. I noticed that, and I was like, wait a second. And then I would watch it, and it's just not, it's not consistent.
Okay. That's bad.
All right. Moving on with the story. Sid is tortured. And like they're beating on him, they're stabbing him in the leg. And he's like, no, he's upset with them. because they are background charactering, torturing him so hard. And he's like, no, I can background even harder than these guys. And then he starts wailing, no, set me free. I don't know anything. And he's loving it. You're right. They do eventually set him free. And Alpha comes to his apartment. And he's like, we're going to go on the mission tonight. He's like, okay, it's time for the game. So he uses all the money he saved up from his girlfriend. And he decorates his apartment to look like the Eminence in Shadow's lair. And then Beta shows up. Delta shows up. And then they start the attack. So there's also a monster in with Alexia. Jeremy mentioned Alexia is trapped with an evil scientist who's taking her blood. He's ranting crazily about her blood and resurrecting a demon. But there's like this, clearly was a woman and now is a giant Hulk-like monstrosity. And he sets it free when he gets upset, but it kills him and sets Alexia free and then goes on a rampage in the city.
And it set her free because he was beating her, and Alexia goes, hey, get back to drawing my blood, to save the monster.
Right, try to help him.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we
Alexia's
find out that the monster is the daughter of that guy.
the bad guy from the first kidnapping, yes.
And she's still a little girl. Mm-hmm. And she gets turned back into a person.
So wait a second. This is a new thing I didn't think about till now. The Alpha was this amorphous monstrosity that had no form.
Mm-hmm.
And this monster has some sort of bipedal form to it, even though she's hulked out.
Mm-hmm.
It seems that whatever they're doing to these girls is getting more and more refined.
So you think the blob was just early attempts?
Yeah.
It's possible.
I know Troy's saying he'd given us way too much credit. But that's what I'm telling you.
I'm not.
There's an underpinning here.
Uh-huh.
Look, 100% brutal honesty here. I don't care. But I'm assuming our listeners do based on the review scores of this anime. So I am happy that you guys are touching on this. Because I know when I'm doing my recap, I'm blowing past stuff that people want to talk about. I'm trusting you guys are grabbing it and bringing it up and doing the discussion that normally I'd be a part of. But like I said, no, you'd keep doing that, Jason.
Okay,
you got
I
it.
will.
Nothing if not fair. All right. Yeah. So Iris, who's Alexia's sister, ends up battling this monstrosity and is like chopping it piece by piece because it heals itself. And then Alpha stops her and defeats it in one blow. But is very much. I actually think you have some thing there, Jason. Is she seems to very much understand what this creature is going through and is very empathetic towards it while she destroys it. Meanwhile, Alexia is walking through the sewers and she runs into her fiance, who turns out was the villain behind the whole plan, so he could get a job promotion.
But it sounded more prestigious than that. It sounded like...
Right.
Well, it's almost like this world's version of Knights of the Round Table, right? Like he's wanting to be top of the top generals within this society, and he believes doing this thing will get him there.
Shadow shows up, has a fight with him. The guy pops some red pills.
Does
He
it really
hulks
fight,
out.
though?
And this is where Shadow, Sid, goes, I knew no matter how strong I got, I could be killed by an atom bomb. And then the bad guy's like, what?
Right.
I did like that. He's like, you're talking insane. That, like, the words you're saying aren't words.
Yeah.
But it's like, so and Sid's like, well, I can go nuclear. And he does, magically. And it leaves he takes out half the city in a crater.
Yeah, just absolute wrecks.
I think Iris and her generals said that they managed to get people evacuated. So I think it was just infrastructure that he took out, which is still horrible. But I don't know if they managed to evacuate that entire region, because that's a pretty big chunk.
Did he know that?
No, he did not know that. Not a chance.
That's
if
important.
he knew that, would he care?
I do not think he would. Nope.
Here's the crazy thing though. Alexia, who was 10 feet away, she's fine. She's on the edge of the crater.
Yeah,
So-
I was thinking that too. That's
There's
weird.
there's something here a theory. Not only did that happen, but he created some sort of boundary around
did.
him and the bad guy. I'm
Mhm.
wondering if it was something like I forget what they call it, but like basically his magic only affected the structures and that dude, and then like anyone
Faraday.
else that might have been Faraday. There you go. That
Mhm.
might have been caught in the blast wouldn't have been hurt like Alexia. I don't know.
That's very possible. But I think that his like Faraday enchantment, because it had like technological lines in it, and the guy's like, "What the heck is that? I've never seen this magic." Right? It was like his technomancy. It didn't spread out very far. Maybe it was a cone. It was a cone. That explains why the radius was so big. The diameter was so big at the surface. But down here, she could be standing, what looked like maybe 20 feet, 15 feet from him.
Oh,
And
so
she's
like a top.
outside of it.
It sure didn't look like a cone when she was in the crater. But
That's true.
But I actually, when Jason was talking, I was like, maybe a cone, yeah.
Yeah, cone's the only way.
Anyway.
This is super important, Troy.
No.
Is it?
Oh, and I was thinking that along the lines of your previous comment, Jason, about a third party creating these things,
Mhm.
I think they are specifically just injecting Hero's blood, and that's why they need the purified blood from the royal line, because that has the closest lineage from the hero. So yes, that makes perfect sense. If they had limited quantities of that blood, maybe they like somehow magically synthesized some artificial blood and that was producing, or maybe they just didn't have the pattern down, because we saw like what they did with the artifact, how they had to prepare the artifact with very specific rituals ahead of time, which I thought was really cool. I love that. I bet you that that's what the doctor's doing, is something similar with the blood. And so he had to get the rituals down just right. And I'll bet the previous rituals and the limited amount of blood supply meant that they could only produce the bad batch as he refined it. I bet
So
that's
I'm wondering if it has to be a high like a highly powerful magic user, or at least someone with high magical potential that's female, is the only host that can do what they need to do. And that's why they've been experimenting with these particular girls.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Now the question
on
becomes,
its face, I 100% believe that is giving this anime way too much credit. But I would be thrilled if that's like, if it was something of that nature, that like there was more going on in the underpinnings of the undercurrent.
well, which makes me wonder what his real objective is, because I don't think his objective is to just make monsters. Sounds like his objective is to bring Diablos back.
Right.
So is Diablos supposed to be birthed by one of these girls instead of having her mutate into a monster? She gives birth to Diablos or becomes Diablos. Maybe Diablos is a woman. I don't know.
Or Diablos just has to be able to kind of take possession and then be born out of it. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay,
but
cool.
It has to be the right vessel.
Yeah. See, that's why this anime is awesome, Troy. So you can theory craft all kinds of
you
potential.
made up.
Because of things you made up.
I'll give you this. Your guys' story is way better.
There's still the potential. This could be.
Yeah,
You're
there's
right.
still 10 more episodes.
And we're watching them.
And that's just season 1. I didn't hear we're watching them.
All right. Iris finds her sister. Also, there was a whole thing about Alexia watching Shadow's fighting style matching hers and being like, oh, that fighting style is cool. So anyway, afterwards, she tells Sid she wants to get back together. Because, he said nice things about her fighting style and she shouldn't have reacted so badly. And he's like, thumbs down, no way. And so she slits him from neck to nuts.
Yes.
And I love her facial expression while she does it. She's like, okay.
This is one of the few jokes I
Woman
really laughed at.
scorned.
Because it suddenly goes into Sid's narration. It's just we don't see him get cut. We just see the blood splatter on the wall, and he starts talking about how it becomes one of the there's blood found, but there's never found a body found. It becomes one of the mysteries of the school. You know, we learned about Japanese schools always have these mysteries, right? And the no body murder, but it was him, and he's just can't be killed.
Yep.
It is confusing later when this becomes a plot point. But whatever. He walks off and he bumps into this nerdy bookworm, pink-haired next main female character.
Bloody from head to toe.
Yeah.
Okay, we find out that there's also now a second Shadow Garden. Basically, the Cult of Diablo has created their own group that's made to imitate Shadow Garden and ruin their reputation, even though I would think an atomic bomb going off in the city would have done that just fine. And we see them, like one of their operatives murder a man. And then Sid's friends are like, hey, if you need help with the ladies, let's go get chocolate. And he's like, oh, this world has chocolate now. That's cool. So they go to what looks just like an Earth department store. And he's pulled aside for a survey. And then taken upstairs where it's actually one of his Shadow Garden number girls. It's Gamma. And she took his stories about chocolate and department stores and other things and ran with it and has now created a multi-million Zenny empire. And he gets to sit on the throne and he gives them all a little bit of magic on their faces.
And they thank him and love it. That was weird.
That scene was a little odd.
He's like, I love it. And then he steals some of their money and gets some chocolate, and then leaves. But he had heard from his friends about the murders, and he hears a murderer nearby. He's already solved the murder, he thinks, because, well, Alexia just tried to murder him, so she must be the murderer.
Yes. It was a really dumb conclusion to draw.
Very dumb.
But that's what he did. Yeah.
He was half right. Alexia was involved.
Yeah.
No, but we have to talk about how he gets away from his friends.
I have to poop.
I have to poop. You go, man. You go the poop.
See, this is one of those times where just the fact that this anime is a parody really shines. Like, that is what it's doing. Because
So
it's doing...
contrived.
Yeah, it's so contrived, but it's that whole, like, this is your personal honor against society's honor, the honor of your school. It's making something out of nothing and making that nothing so important that you're getting, like, specially drawn portraits of the characters screaming, and they're all giving, like, their wails about how this is such a big deal. And this happens in anime all the time. Like, to the point where if Tanya's sitting over there watching something else, she yells at me, would you turn it off? Fast forward, get through that, because it's just constant, like, blah, blah, right? And so to have the anime do this, but make it about something as asinine as this guy's going to go poop in the alleyway. And then his friends afterwards tell everybody anyway. Everybody's like, oh, it's that guy that pooped outside. Like, that's making fun of anime in general. It's not even making fun of just a specific genre. I like that. Meta. Yeah. It's your favorite. It's meta, Troy.
I like the joke. I don't think it's meta. I think you're giving it a little bit of credit. I think it was just a silly scene.
And I love the stylized, like, picture of him, and then it immediately flashes to him like, okay, now it's time to go.
Yeah.
So he does go off and he finds Alexia, but she's actually being attacked by the Cult of Diablos. So he saves her as Shadow and then chases off after these fake Shadow Gardens.
They capture one.
Yeah.
I wonder what he would have done if she actually was killing people. Would he just have killed her as Shadow and left the body?
He said, I don't care that she's murdering people, but I care that she's doing it under Shadow Garden's name.
Yeah.
So I think he was gonna. If she was just murdering people, I don't think he would do anything about it.
But if knowing that she would have been doing it under Shadow Garden's name, I wonder if he would have killed her, or if he would have like
he
scared
would've
her
killed her.
out of it. He would have killed her, wouldn't he? The princess.
He's a sociopath.
Oh yeah. I don't think
He's
I don't think
so-
he was hesitated.
God, I hate this character. He's the antithesis of everything I look for in an anime protagonist.
Yes.
But I like the anime.
It's fun to watch. I'm
It's
not
fun.
rooting for him, but I do like to
No.
watch it.
Yeah.
And I know you guys have your ideas. I just want to know what the anime's trying to tell me.
I don't think the
What's your
anime knows
point?
what it's trying to tell you.
No, all the
Yes,
anime is
that's-
saying, all the anime is saying is, this is really cool if you were that powerful, isn't it? Wouldn't this be cool? That's the only thing it's trying to say right now. I think.
I don't think so. I think there's more intent than that. I just think it's failing. to get
Well-
anything more than that across.
To your point, I think there were several times where I think the anime could have done a better job of making a distinction between when the character decided something and when he didn't, right? Like even just a question you had about when did he realize the cult of Diablos is real, and it's not just a fabrication on the part of Shadow Garden girls, right? The anime should have done a better job of making that clear. That shouldn't be a question.
I don't think he knows. I know you said he knows, and I don't remember him saying that. I honestly think at this point he still is like, the cult of Diablos is something I made up and they believe in, or we're playing with.
No, he found out it was real when he ran into that first dude who took the pills.
Yeah.
Because
No.
he was,
The guy was saying,
Yeah.
I am from the cult of Diablos.
yeah, and he's like, oh, this is a real thing.
Mhm.
They had a conversation about it in
Yep.
that first fight with the guy with the pills, the blonde dude.
But in the second battle, when they're saving Alexia, he thinks they're just going after bandits.
Does he?
Wait, in the second battle,
I mean, they literally tell him about the cult of Diablo, and he's
Well, I
he
don't
wouldn't
think.
care anyway, even if he found out it was real.
Well, yeah, that is exactly right. But I don't think that he necessarily believes that Alexia was abducted by the cult of Diablos. He may think that Alexia was abducted by bandits, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't know the cult of Diablos exists.
I don't
I thought-
know.
Okay, isn't the whole premise of the show is that he's fighting a cult he doesn't realize is actually real?
The whole premise of I would say the first half of the first.
I
four.
thought that was the whole show. That he's just
No.
goofing off, fighting random bad guys, but he's actually
That was-
uncovering a worldwide conspiracy that he made up as a joke.
No, so yes, that before he enters school. Once he has that fight with the guy with the yellow hair, things change and he's no longer just doing it as a game. He knows he's fighting another organization that is attempting to and the reason that we know that is because he knows that they are trying to pose as Shadow Garden and he doesn't like that.
But no, he
Well-
thought Alexia was posing as Shadow Garden. He just
No,
thought
he
she was
thought he thought Alexia was just going around murdering people.
under the name Shadow Garden. That's why
Right,
he
because
cared.
But they didn't know that. Okay, but at this point, at that particular moment, he didn't know that the cult of Diablos was attempting to send out phonies. They didn't
Did
know
they-
about that till later.
Did we mention he murdered cops? Dirty cops, to
They
be
were dirty.
fair. But
Yeah.
The ones that tortured him, but yeah, they were cops. And
Yeah,
also,
and
like, they were gonna arrest him. Even like
Mhm.
they planted
they
evidence.
were going to frame him for murder.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I still don't believe he believes it's real.
That's fine.
Well-
you don't have to.
Yeah, I don't know. He would have to be absolutely like stupid to not believe it's real because they're literally saying it right in front of him as he's killing them. Like, I am from the cult of Diablos.
Yeah,
So-
and then also once they start, like, once we get to the artifacts that they start working with,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's explicitly said to his face, these are artifacts from the cult of Diablos.
Yeah. So he's got to know that it's real. He may not necessarily associate it with all of the like wrongdoings going on. Like
Or
his
he doesn't
instincts.
care that much
Yeah, and he definitely
about
doesn't
it.
care. He definitely doesn't care.
Okay.
And he knows Alexia's going after.
I don't
or not
trust
Alpha is going
myself, so
after him.
I'm gonna trust you guys. 'Cause I don't trust myself.
Okay.
I mean, I
But
could be wrong, absolutely, but I didn't get that impression that you did.
Well, and this is why I was saying the anime does not do a good enough job of clarifying some of these things. Like if this is the baseline of the joke of your anime, we shouldn't be arguing about it. It should be so clear that we're all on the same page.
Yeah, there should be some internal monologue of like, oh, here we go, the cult of Diablos again. Okay, where are we going? Like, who are we going to get in trouble with this time? Because he would be making a joke about it nearly every time.
Exactly.
But he takes, even though he's kind of dismissive when they give him updates, he takes them seriously. He believes what they say.
He kind of ignores them.
No. That one I can disprove. In episode 5, when Alpha shows up, he literally says they show up to play the game with me.
Yeah, okay, but that was when they were
and
first.
She's telling him, "Hey, Cult of Diablo is doing something." And he's like, "All right, game on. I get it."
Right, because he doesn't know about the organization, and he thinks that.
But you said he already knew about the cult.
He hadn't run into the blonde-haired guy at that point.
Oh, he did before he got to the school because he rescued his sister. That's where he ran into her. Ran into him.
Okay.
It's confusing.
Yeah,
it's really confusing.
Right.
I think the shtick of him not caring whenever they bring him battle reports, that's definitely consistent though. Like he does not care. But he does know that like somebody claimed to be of the cult of Diablos and he killed them. So that couldn't have just been an actor that the Shadow Garden hired. Like he can't be that evil that he's like, oh yeah, they're just trying to satisfy my.
That's where my confusion was coming from. Like he's clearly killing these guys, so he thinks they're bad guys because he doesn't just kill randomly.
No.
But again, I thought the whole concept of the show, like front to back, it was going to be he made up a cult. The cult was real, and he never realizes he was right the whole time.
We can move on. I'm going to look it up because I am honestly confused at this point.
Okay. Yeah. So for those of you who are typing comments, Jason will take care of it in a few minutes. You can.
Yeah. He'll get us all straightened out.
We don't need listener engagement.
Jason, stop looking now, please, in the comments.
We don't get enough comments. We need Jason.
Yeah.
All right. Back at school, Sid's friends try to give chocolates to girls. It goes bad. So Sid gives one to a girl on a whim. And this is a major character. The next one is going to be in trouble. Her name is Cherry, and she is a brilliant scientist and who's the adopted daughter of the assistant principal scientist of the science school next to the Demon Knight school. Thoughts on Cherry? Jeremy, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. Cherry is sort of the bumbling, cute, silly, quiet, mousy girl, and I got a kick out of her. There's some scenes that she really does a good job in. There's a particular joke where she's trying to make her way through this horribly dangerous school that's been infested by fake Shadow Garden invaders, right? And she's just kind of bumbling her way through it, and he's protecting her from the shadows, and it's actually really cute when he does catch up to her, and he's like going through, here's what you did wrong, here's what you did wrong, and then the last one is, and take these slippers off, because she's been trying to sneak through this school with pink bunny rabbit slippers. So even though she's super, super smart, really well versed with artifacts and figuring out how things work and everything in history, she is just she's min-maxed. She has absolutely no capability in anything else. To the point where even her relationship with her father is absolutely terrible, and she didn't perceive any of it. Like, she didn't catch it at all. So yeah, I got a kick out of her. I think she's going to be an interesting character in the future because I get a very strong indication that she's probably going to be an antagonist, or at least maybe turn into somebody that is like an antagonist and then turns back into a friend. I don't know, but she's got a vendetta for the future. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. I also liked her interaction with Alexia when she was figuring out, you know, is Sid actually in a relationship or can I really date him? So she had some really cute moments.
I mirror a lot of what Jeremy just said. But I didn't like her as much as I did Alexia.
Okay.
But my Alexa's going off. Hold on. But I think I didn't like how mousy she was. I know, right? It's like, but I liked that she was kind of the smart one, the researcher, and her part within that storyline. I did like her, what she played. But I wasn't a huge fan of her character. She was all right.
Yeah, I guess to me, at this point I was like, you're just here for an arc, and you're already going through a lot of the same motions as the last character, and the only part that it paid off is when she actually confronted the last character about the same thing, like, hey, I am also starting a relationship with this character, and then the confrontation came from that. Otherwise, it was almost like she's very different. She's not as menacing, confrontational as Alexia is. But just the fact that it was like, oh, I am also starting to fall in love with this random aloof guy who is a huge jerk to everyone he meets. He's being way too aloof to be a background character, by the way. He is messing up totally. He's got to be way more like friendly and conversational if he wants to be background. Aloof, if you're aloof, you're the star of Gundam Wing, okay?
All right, Troy.
Yeah.
I think I'm just either reading too much into the anime or I'm giving it too much credit.
He has no idea.
And what the logic that's used to kind of do that is he can't tell the difference between the low level Shadow Garden or even like the low level bandits and the high level dudes that have massive amounts of power. Like he can't tell the difference between them when he fights them because he's just that much more powerful than everyone else. And because of that, he doesn't believe anyone when they're like, oh, there's this cult of Diablos that they're trying to do this horrible thing and they're super powerful. He's like, super powerful. Just another bug to him.
If you made up like a random thing and then suddenly everyone was saying it was real, you'd be like, oh, that's my lie. That's just my lie overgrowing my control. To find out that it was a perfect coincidence, it was the exact name of a real cult that really was taking over the world. That would be hard to come to terms with. But yeah, my understanding was that the whole concept is that he doesn't get it.
Yeah,
he just thinks
you're right.
We're playing a game.
That doesn't work.
He even thinks Shadow Garden, like, oh, she became a rich businesswoman and she became this famous author, has nothing to do with him.
But that doesn't work. If he's going to kill the people that are pretending to be, then how does he justify that these people are pretending to be from the cult of Diablos?
He just thinks they're bandits and that everyone else, that they like must have heard the name from his own girls or something. Oh,
that's so dumb. Oh, I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
Oh, was it? No, it's great, guys. It's got so much potential. Remember all the potential.
If that's the reality of it, that's worse because that's potential squandered. Oh, that's painful. It would be one thing if he never heard them or he never acknowledged them saying they're from the cult of Diablos. But the fact that these people are saying it.
I don't remember anyone saying it to him personally.
Oh, they did.
But yeah.
They totally did. And they're like, oh, Night of the Rounds from the Cult of Diablos. Whatever. Ugh. Bleh. Bleh.
Yeah, it puts bad taste in my mouth as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Thanks, Troy.
Thanks, Troy.
Making us look at the reality of the anime. We were so happy in our own little Shinboyo worlds, or whatever you say.
there's a fighting tournament.
Oh yeah.
Fighting tournament arc. And so this is the scene. It's New. New comes up and is like explaining to him battle reports about Cult of Diablo, and he's like, but he's not listening. He's reading the rules for the tournament because he's really upset his friends forced him to enter this tournament. But then he goes and he fights another princess.
There's a lot of princesses.
There's like a lot of princesses here. It's weird.
Yeah.
And they're all becoming Dark Knights.
Yep.
Yes.
This is not a sister, literally a different princess, but also the most popular girl in school, just like the last one.
And the best fighter in school right now.
Oh yeah, and this one's the best fighter, just hands down the best.
The best.
And they have their tournament fight, and he's like, I've been practicing moves just for this moment.
And it goes to the slow-mo.
It does the cool thing. Like first they disappear, and then it freezes time so that we can see where they are, and then they're swinging at each other, and then she smashes him in the chest, and he does super quadruple backflip, land on his face, and they're like, oh, he's dead. he killed. And then he jumps up, I can keep going. And he's like, I practice these moves. I'm going to show everyone every move I practice. But
I think
honestly,
he said, I have 39 of these.
It was the same move over and over.
Yep. The second one was different, and then every other one looked exactly the same.
And he always landed in the same position.
Mm-hmm.
And this wins Rose's admiration. And then the ref like saves him from her and calls off the fight, saying he lost and he's carried away on a stretcher. And afterwards, Cherry comes up to him and gives him some cookies and says, well, we can be friends. And he's like, I don't know who this is. He does not remember from the 2 times he's already met her. And he's like,
from the time he gave her chocolate,
right? And
helped her up.
Yeah, this is his 3rd time meeting her. And he's like, sure, friends, whatever. And she's like, father. And her father comes out and he's like, oh, that's the assistant principal. These are important characters. This is not background character material. So he's like, okay, I'll pretend to be hurt. So he goes home and decides to avoid her. She wants to go visit him, but goes and talks to Alexia instead because she remembers they were dating. And this is where she's like, are you guys still involved? She's like, no, we broke up. We were faking. She's like, good, then I will be in a relationship with him. And Alexia gets really mad. It's like crushing her teacup little by little as they're talking.
Even though she's saying, oh, yeah, that sounds great for you guys.
Yeah. Okay. Then we learn student elections are coming up, and Rose comes to his classroom to talk about it. But at this moment, we get there's a movie reference here, and I'm not going to get it. I'm upset. Anyway, terrorists break into the school. He gets to do a Die Hard.
Die Hard.
He doesn't even get to do a fun Die Hard because the whole point of Die Hard is that you're weaker than all the guys, and you're the sneaker. Anyway,
Die Hard. The
terrorist
best is the Rick and Morty one.
Die
Hard.
I have watched Die Hard 100 times. You cannot out Die Hard me.
Die Hard.
Sorry.
He doesn't have to walk on broken glass.
True.
He is super excited. Well, we don't see that. First, we see like there's a magic field that goes up. He's like, "Oh, I've lost my magic," which isn't technically true, but mostly true. And then they go. One of the terrorists goes to slash Rose, and he's like, "No!" And he jumps through, and he gets cut. That's the end of the episode. But then the next episode starts with a couple seconds before that, where he's like, "Yeah, terrorists taking over a school. That's every teenage boy's dream."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh no, they're gonna kill a main character. That can't happen. They have to kill a background character. Me." And he jumps in front of the sword, and he dies heavily. And he does technically die here. And then all the student body is taken to the grand auditorium to be held hostage. But he has cast a magic spell where he will beat himself in the chest with his fist and bring his heart back to life.
And keep
And he
his
said
blood
he
flowing
used-
with magic.
Yeah, he said he would use magic to keep just enough blood flow to his brain so he didn't actually die.
Right. But doesn't that mean it has to go through the heart?
Yes, but if you were you can go through a pump without the pump going if you had enough pressure pushing it through the pump, right?
Wouldn't that just restart the pump?
Yes. No, that would definitely.
Well, not if the magic
that's
was
how a pump would
holding
work.
it
Yeah.
in place.
There's some kind of problem there.
Okay,
But
he's back
you're
to
right. It did show threads around his heart, so maybe it was restricting the heart from beating.
He did also use magic thread to sew his wound together.
Yeah. Instead of just using healing magic to heal the
He couldn't
Right.
because of the eye.
I guess healing magic can't be spun as finely as slime, stealth, shadow magic, super magic.
But
Maybe.
his slime isn't working.
Unless he turns
It's
it into
full of
threads.
Yeah.
Then how is he fine? He's not fine. He has a gaping hole in his chest.
Yeah. But he's using
Because-
slime threads to stitch it together.
Yeah, is this
Hey,
really
you
what
can
maybe.
pinch it.
Maybe
What happened to you, Jason? I happened to you. I've ruined you.
You did.
All right. He does a really I'm bored Die Hard. He just like snipes bad guys from the roof, waiting for darkness because why are they already wearing black robes in the daytime? That just looks stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But he notices Sherry, who's running from a guy named Rex, who seemed like a really cool antagonist, but he's not. He kills
gets
the
to, like-
captain of the guards
Yeah, off screen.
off screen. Hurts the other guy named Marco, who apparently has this huge backstory we don't know about.
Yep.
We'll get to that in a second. Anyway, he sees Sherry, and she keeps like just walking into guards, so he just like keeps murdering guards right before she turns around corners, so she'll be safe. And then eventually he goes to her, and he's like, "You are an idiot for sneaking around like you are."
That joke worked for probably the first 2 or 3, but they just kept going on and it got a little tiring. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, we get it. You're covering for her. Can we move on?
She does the I'm the scientist character in a movie and explains how the magical field device is working, and then she's been studying the other half of the device, which could shut down the first device, but she needs to finish it, so she needs her tools. So he goes off. First, he kills that Rex guy after throwing him in a classroom full of dead assassins, where he has piled up the bodies in seats. Like he put them in the desks.
Yeah.
All the dead assassins.
He's got some serious mental problems.
He goes to her laboratory, and Nu is there, and she's getting ready to kill her ex-fiance, who's the other guard who survived the attack. And he's like,
Who seems to have is what made her into the blob monstrosity, or at least she seems to blame him for it.
Yeah, because like she has a flashback where she's like reaching towards someone. We're presuming that's him.
Yeah, because he was her betrothed.
Mm-hmm. And then she turns into the monster.
Yeah. And Sid asks her what she's doing. She's like, nothing. He's like, are you gonna kill that guy? She's like, probably not. He's like, okay, that's fine. And then he talks about how, okay, I'm gonna go. She's like, we don't really know what to do. He's like, no, I got a magical device. I'm gonna fix it. And she thinks, oh, he knows everything about magical devices, not knowing he's literally just passing on the work to someone else. He's just carrying the tools. So he gets the tools and goes back to Sherry. Sherry activates or gets it to work, and then she's like, "Oh, there's tunnels underneath the school that will take me to the auditorium so I can do it." He's like, "All right, good luck, bye." Sends her on her own.
Which kind of fit like a background character if you're imagining playing
right
like an
he's
RPG.
Not gonna...
It actually would work. The background character would be like, "Okay, this is where I gotta go do my own thing. You gotta have a new party member join you."
Right. So we get a flashback of Sherry's mother being murdered, and I didn't get who the leader of the terrorists was until this episode, but they come in so strong with the hints here. They show the murder and then flash match cut to her adoptive father in the same pose. He's like, "Hi, want to come with me?" And then they show the leader. In case you haven't figured it out, he starts coughing, which the dad has been doing the whole anime. And then they show a close up of his mouth and make sure to show that mustache that he has. I'm like, no, we got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the terrorists start randomly shooting students because they're bored.
Yeah.
So that happened. But then she throws the device and it deactivates the field. The kids start fighting back, and then Shadow and his Shadow Garden show up and they start battling. But this leader catches the gym on fire and he sneaks off with both devices. And then Sid finds him and confronts him as Sid in Cherry's. I don't know the guy's name. It's Cherry's dad, and he's in his office burning like her notes on the device. And Sid's like, "Oh, I knew it was you the whole time. Battle me." And
Well, it's really weird because it's almost like Sid is saying, "You're not sociopathic enough. I'm looking at your history, and you actually cared about a person here. I wouldn't have cared." It's like, whoa, dude.
I was taking, especially after he saved Sherry from all those terrorists, that he is caring a little bit, but is not wanting to acknowledge that because he seems to be like a little confused by his own choices here and just trying to ignore them, like saving Sherry and then not telling her, "Hey, that dude was evil that I just killed." Because so he battles the guy as Shadow, kills him, and just as Sherry comes in, she finds her father murdered by Shadow, and he says to himself, "It's better she doesn't know," and he leaves. And it's like the first human empathy thing he's done this whole anime.
Yeah.
So
well, and you got to
I'm
imagine
hoping they're
too,
showing
like,
there's some humanity starting to form in him with all these harems.
yeah, you could be right. Yeah, that's what it takes to it's a harem. You can imagine for poor Sherry too, like the way her mother was killed was very brutal, right? Stabbed in the legs, stabbed in the arms, and then killed.
Yeah.
And her father, and like right before she walked in as a little girl, right? And
Right.
then it literally happens again with her fake dad. Like the same.
But she doesn't
exact
notice
method.
the demonic growth on his chest or
Right.
how
Twisted
his
face.
face is completely messed up.
No.
Because he used the device to power up, right?
Yeah. Yep. But I just thought it was really funny because, like, what are the odds? Imagine if you're just Sherry and you're like, "Oh, this is how my mom died. It was so tragic," and then, "Oh crap, my dad just died the same way." That's weird. Like, if you take that out of the context of anything else that happened, just that one person's life is really weird.
So Shadow is now wanted for murder. And because the school was mostly set on fire, they go to summer break early. And Sherry decides to move away to another school where she's going to work on a secret project that she will not tell Sid about.
Oh, she wants vengeance.
Obviously.
And then we come to episode 10, which kind of sets up the next arc and is the ending point of our watch here. He doesn't go home for the summer, but he gets a letter from Alpha that he needs to go to the city of Lindworm for a mission. And then we see some...
Is Lindworm a holy city? Is that right?
It's where the heroes defeated the demon.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, because they're like going for some ceremony of a goddess's blessing or something.
We see Shadow Garden people going through their life. This is where the scene where like the girls are arguing about their boobs, and we get the lady finding the cat in front of the camera instead.
We also find out about the Epsilon actually having just like kind of a scrawny body, but she uses her slime magic to create a fake buxom body. And she's one of the two arguing.
So one thing that the OP does well, let's bring it all the way back, is it does show some personality of these Shadow Garden members that we don't get to see. Like Epsilon is a model in that world, or in the fake world of the OP. She's on posters and stuff, and like Alpha is always on her phone the whole time, like planning stuff and contacting everyone. I think that's what the OP was trying to do, is like, hey, here's some personality in a setting that you might find more familiar. We see Gamma at a business meeting with like in a conference room, stuff like that. Anyway, I just remember Epsilon being a model.
Mm.
That makes sense.
Oh yeah, we gotta talk about Iris and Alexia going shopping at Gamma's store. Jeremy loved this scene.
This was awesome. It cracked me up. Like with everything that poor Alexia has gone through, this was just really upbeat and silly and just a cute scene. And yeah, I enjoyed it. It was great.
I did like how Gamma immediately like figured, because she's like, I want to buy something, but not for me.
But
But
kind of for me.
Casual.
kind of, yeah. She's like, I know what you want.
I have one issue with this. At the very end of the scene, there's a little teaser line shouted out, and it's Alexia going, "What do you got in a G-string?" Which she wouldn't know that
Yeah.
is, but she just learned what a thong is. So I get what you're trying to do with the joke, but that joke is weirdly out of place.
Yeah. But
I did like the thought experiment of what would these women do in a world where these things didn't used to exist and they just now came on the market? Like, how does that conversation go? And that was an interesting portrayal.
And it was good to see both perspectives, because I could see both perspectives existing.
I forbid you.
That's not
Yes.
covering anything you need to cover.
Exactly. I also really liked this was another scene where there was subtlety going on in the background, just like with the cat, right? The girl and the cat.
The one girl putting the panties back on the model, another pair.
Right. Like, what benefit is that? Usually you're not going to bother to animate that, right? Because it doesn't contribute anything to the plot. It is entirely there just to provide a little bit of distraction in the background. And I thought that was fantastic. That's one of the high points. Not like this event is a high point, but just that subtlety being present is a high point for me in the anime.
So Sid ends up having to go to Lindworm because of Alpha's letter, but on the train is Rose, the princess, who's in love with him, and she's like, "Oh, we're going together." And he has to spend 2 days hiding from her on the train, which he can Spider-Man on the ceiling
And sleep.
And sleep while he's doing it.
He does that twice in this episode. He did it from his sister in the beginning, so she wouldn't know he wasn't going home, and then on this train. Anyway, he gets to Lindworm, and then he's with her again, and her favorite author is there. And it ends up being Beta, who, like Jeremy had mentioned, is just regurgitating his Earth stories, like Star Wars and Dragon Ball Z.
I really hoped that this actually was another isekai person, because I thought that had, more interesting potential.
That was his first thought, was
right.
There must be someone else from Earth here.
Yeah, that would have been really cool.
I thought I saw her hair, and I was like, "Oh, it's Beta." Especially since we had just seen her writing too. I was like, "It's gonna be Beta." Yeah. Alpha finds the bishop murdered on a statue, but now everyone, the security guards think she did it. So Shadow Garden is wanted again for murder. We see Sid looking down on the city, very Batman-like, but he's eating ice cream while he does it.
Yeah.
And then he finds a cultist and confronts him, and Epsilon shows up and murders him, and then he talks a little bit about Epsilon, and that's just the end. It just kind of ends there. With like Epsilon.
Well, this is where Epsilon talks using her slime boobs, and this cracked me up. Because it played really well with the character that they had presented, with the fact that she made that slime outfit. So that was another joke I laughed at. Okay,
let's go to final reviews for these first 10 episodes. Jason, it's your pick. What do you think?
I've mentioned throughout the review that I really am enjoying the humor. I like the world building, and I think that we've got some good parody, poking fun, but also some decent underpinnings that I'm really hoping will get fleshed out in the next 10 episodes. I kind of walked into this with kind of a high 3, thinking I was almost going to go a 4. But finding out that Sid just never knows that the cult is real, and he's not taking an active role in his organization, but he thinks the whole organization is just a game. This is a low 3. Like, I can't quite bring it down to a 2 because I am enjoying myself, but I'm concerned it will affect my enjoyment of the next 10 episodes. So we'll just have to see how it goes. But right now it stands at a 3. It's real middle of the road.
Go ahead, Jeremy. What do you got?
Same exact thing. For me, this is absolutely it balances itself out, is how I would put it. There's a lot of really good jokes in it for me. Like, they're right up my alley. I like them. I enjoy what it's doing, where it's poking fun at things, whether it's pooping in the alley, whether it's, you know, the underwear jokes, the boob jokes. I'd love those. Whether it's, you know, whatever else it's doing to kind of undermine or deconstruct the ideas that are so often seen in isekai or in, you know, power fantasy anime. I really like all of those things, but yeah, and I love the subtlety. The subtle things that are added are fantastic. I wish more anime would do stuff like this. And it's long form is the reason why I say that, right? Like, sometimes you'll have anime do something quick, like somebody adjusts something in the background or like moves an apple around on a counter or something. But to have a long form thing going on throughout an entire conversation in the foreground, something happening in the background, that's really cool. But at the same time, there's a lot of negatives. Like, the anime doesn't really know, at least I got the impression it doesn't really know what it's trying to be. Or at least it doesn't know it well enough to be clear about what it's trying to be. Just that conversation we had, I genuinely still don't see how he can not believe that there is a cult of Diablos, even if it is the one that they've made up. Like, he's got it. It just doesn't make sense to me. And there were other instances where things just weren't clear. I can't remember what they were exactly, but the anime did not do a good job of establishing things and showing points of change, I guess is how I would describe it. Where a character comes to one conclusion or some event happens or something. I don't know. I wish I could be more clear about what I'm saying, but yeah, for me, it's just a 3, right in the middle of 3.
I think what I need the most is to hear his rationalizing how something isn't what it is in reality. Like, how is he telling himself, oh, let's go get these bandits? They're just not saying that out loud. Or we get his inner monologue all the time, but we don't get, oh, okay, they found a bandit group and they're calling them the Cult of Diablo. I get the game.
Yeah.
We're not really seeing that much. Really, they almost stop after he says the girls show up once in a while to play with me. That's like,
yeah.
They drop it after that and just like, you get it now. We're not gonna touch on this anymore. This is a permanent thing.
Yeah, the same thing with the mall that just shows up. The modern day fashions from his world, which, I mean, what was he? Was he a fashionista? Like, how did he describe the clothes? If that's how he described chocolate, how did he describe the clothes and the thongs? And like, I find it very difficult to believe that his Shadow Garden girls were able to just pull the modern from our world and start fabricating. I mean, they even had like what looked like lipstick and makeup and stuff inside of plastic containers. So where are they making plastic from? Are they enchanting it or is it petroleum? Like, what's going on? Where's the underlying infrastructure to produce the modern things that they're showing there?
I think what gets me is, like, I can understand like the magic power level or the skill power level or the equipment power level. Like, all that stuff like is just beneath him and he doesn't quite understand the differences. So, but the financial, he's obviously not financially powerful. He has no idea what a large amount of wealth looks like and what it means to him. So when they bring out the million zenny and they're like, this is our thing that we built and I'm attributing it to you, master. I don't understand how he could not see that as either real or outside of this game that he's doing. So that's really confusing to me, how they could possibly justify the financial aspect.
Especially since he took one, which means he knows they're real. They're not an illusion.
I was coming in tonight at a 1. I'm bringing it up to a 2. I'm gonna give it a 2. There were some scenes that were funnier. A few characters I liked more than I thought. And I will admit there's some potential here. So I'm hoping it, but I agree it doesn't know what it wants to be. I'd like to see some, like, if we're gonna have an OP character that doesn't have any stakes, which is kind of a bummer to me. It doesn't have to be high stakes to me. I need it to be high stakes to the character, and they're just not. He's just not really that concerned. But it could be a little more stylized, a little more visually satisfying. It can do better, but there is potential there. So I'm gonna go with a 2. All right, our next anime is the rest of this anime. And we'll find out. Will Sid find out it's not just a game? I don't think so. I literally think it's the concept of the show. And I'm hounding on that because I don't get to be right very often. This is like cool.
Yeah.
No, I would love to hear from our listeners, especially those who are really excited about this anime, who really like this anime, what you love about it, to prove me wrong, because I want to be wrong. I've been trying to find what I like about every anime. This one was a lot harder for me, so I want to hear from you guys. Please message us on any thoughts on Eminence in the Shadow for the first 10 episodes on our Twitter at Baka Podcast or on our website, theanimebakaclub.com. And you can hit the contact us button or leave a comment wherever you found the podcast if comments are allowed, and you should get back to us and tell us what you think. With that, I think it's time for us to say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
I die.
Sayonara.